It doesn't matter at all whether if it's an Asian theme, an Asian story, or whatever. You know, he could have played like the one-eyed swordsman if he wanted to, but it's David Carradine. He's a white dude.
Yeah.
You know, so so it took off. So then when they created Vanishing Sun, it has the same sort of concept. This wandering guy, this wandering Asian guy that goes to different places, saves the day, does good deeds, but he's a peaceful man. You know, that kind of thing. Just kind of like David Carradine's character. But this time it was Russel Wong, who's Asian. Not even full Asian, half Asian.
Yeah.
But he looked more Asian. And he had the Asian last name. You know, so yeah, it didn't take off. It just didn't take off. He just didn't have the fan base that David Carradine has. You know, I packed my stuff, walked across the street. We were working in Calabasas, California at that time, in like a technology park. I walked across the street to another company, and applied and got the job like right there and then as a database programmer. You know, so.
Whoa.
And then the rest was history. I just started working I worked in the software industry for about 10 years.
Oh, okay. So you said you weren't the poor guy anymore. You said you did it for money. You needed
I did it for money. Yeah, I did for absolutely. And then after that, you know, I was making good money there. I got a job after that company. I got a job in San Diego working for a big, automation company. Also as a programmer. From San Diego, I got really proficient programming. I got promoted a couple of times, and then I had the confidence to go to Silicon Valley.
Hi, I'm Sharon Landon, and welcome to my show. Today, my special guest is an award-winning director, producer, writer, actor, martial artist, and coach, Vincent Soberano.
Hi.
Hi, thanks, Vince, for stopping by today.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.
So you're here on break from the Philippines from your new project.
Yeah, a bit of a break. Yeah, we've been on pre-production for over a year now, actually, more than a year now, and I've been going back and forth for training, rehearsals, whatnot, all sorts of stuff, and so we finally wrapped. I guess on the script part, they locked the script. Netflix finally approved the final script. We're up to 9 episodes now. So everyone's taking a break for Christmas. So I decided to come back to Taiwan and hang out with the family. And actually, I'm going back to the Philippines in about 10 days.
In 10 days.
Yeah, bring the whole family to spend the holidays over there.
Yeah, lucky I can catch you in between your busy schedule. So at the beginning, I listed all of these different roles that you have. And I just wanted to ask you, which one of those roles that influenced you the earliest?
Well, actually, I mean, it's in terms of film and everything, I think acting is what influenced me the most in the very beginning. I used to watch kung fu movies with my dad, and when they used to have double features and stuff, we would watch like 2 movies in one day. And I was into martial arts, obviously, so my dad would bring me to kung fu movies, and I loved watching these movies. I idolized like a lot of the big kung fu stars and just wanted to be just like them. So I would go home, because I'm also an artist and a writer. I'd like write up little scripts. I'd like draw, I'd storyboard some scenes, and I would act them out, basically.
So you were writing and doing all of that stuff when you were young? Really? Oh.
Yeah, I was like, 12, 13, something like that, yeah.
So what type of artists were you influenced by? I mean, not artists, but you said martial arts. But
I used to love these Chinese stars. I think a lot of them are Taiwanese, like Meng Fei, Wang Yu. Those are my early idols. And then Bruce Lee came along. Yeah, I've been watching those guys since I was like 8 years old. Bruce Lee came along, and then I was totally into Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee is pretty much the person that convinced me that I really wanted to be an actor, an action star kind of thing.
Oh, really? Wow. So really, I didn't realize that it started that early. So in terms of his martial arts style, is that what you studied or you did when you were young at that age as well?
I started taking like Korean martial arts, Tang Sudo, Taekwondo, when I was really young, like 8 years old, and then wasn't really into it. Didn't really know why. And then when I was 10 years old, I got to watch a Muay Thai match, a Thai boxing match. And after that, I told my dad, this is the one I want to learn.
Oh, interesting. So what's the difference between Muay Thai, Thai boxing, you said, compared to other styles of martial arts? Because that's Thai, it's not
Yeah.
Filipino style or anything.
Yeah, it's Thai, it's not Filipino, it's not Japanese, it's not any of the martial arts. During that time, what struck me with Muay Thai is it was real. I mean, a lot of martial arts, they had like in tournaments, for example, some of them would be like full contact, but it's on points. You hit the guy and then they stop, they give you a point, that kind of thing. Muay Thai just nonstop. It's just full contact, nonstop, and barely any rules. I remember because these guys were throwing elbows, knees at each other. They're kicking each other in the legs. You know, they're throwing each other around. You know, so I'm like, wow, this is a real fight. So I wanted to do Muay Thai.
But is it kind of dangerous then if there's no type of stopping or rules kind of like that compared to what you mentioned?
Well, the way I see it is, it's dangerous to who?
Okay.
Dangerous to my opponent. Yeah.
Okay.
It's only dangerous to the guy that's going to lose.
Right. Oh, that's another way to look at it. So how long did you study that?
Since I was 10.
So 10 till
No.
you grow. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like 50 years.
Wow. So I was mentioning about getting hurt and stuff. And have you ever had a real, where you got seriously injured or your opponent got seriously injured because of
A lot.
the style? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
a lot. I mean, I've knocked out guys so many times I can't remember anymore. And I've been knocked out too. But I remember when I get knocked out, but it wasn't pleasant. And I've had lots of injuries. I have a broken orbital bone. I had stitches in my face. I mean, you name it. I mean, oh yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of injuries. I've knocked out a lot of people. A lot of them pretty badly. I've been knocked out also pretty badly. I've had my orbital bone, broken. I've had stitches all over my face, broken my nose, lost a tooth. I mean, God, if we're talking about injuries, I have had a lot of injuries, yes.
Oh, it kind of makes me cringe because I feel like as a girl, a lot of times guys talk about being in fights or injuries and stuff, and they do it so matter of factly. Oh, anyway, you're still here and you're still whole. So
I'm still here.
yeah. So what you ended up going to the U.S., moving to the U.S. What prompted that move?
My family.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we immigrated basically.
Oh, so your whole family moved over.
Yep.
And where did you?
We first settled down in San Diego. I stayed there. My family, they eventually moved to New York. But I stayed in San Diego because I went to school there, and then I basically just pursued my career in San Diego, in California. Yeah.
So your family is still there right now.
Most of them, yeah. My two sisters are there.
Okay.
My mom and dad are both, deceased, but they spent their last years in New York as well. Yeah,
So how many years did you stay in the U.S.?
25 years.
25 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So in your time in the States, was that you guys moved there in the 1980s or
1980s, yeah.
1980s?
Yeah.
Was it was it a difficult transition for you, or were you able to integrate into the culture, American culture, fairly easily?
It wasn't really that hard. Well, it's yes or no. It wasn't that hard in terms of language because we already spoke language in the Philippines. We spoke English in the Philippines, so the language wasn't too hard. What was hard is the accent. Number one, obviously Filipino English is so much more accented than American English, so that's one thing we kind of struggled with a little bit is the accent. But no big deal though. There's so many, especially California, so many immigrants. So culture-wise, I think because Philippines is such a westernized nation, the culture wasn't such a big change, I suppose.
Yeah, there was the military. There was American military base.
Not just that, but the Philippines was also an American colony for a long time.
Oh, okay. Was it actually considered a colony or not really?
It was a colony.
It was considered a
Yeah,
colony?
yeah.
But when you say a colony,
It was
is
a
sort of like-
commonwealth.
okay, a commonwealth.
Yeah.
Because I feel like colony means
There's
that they
different
came
kinds
and
of
took over.
colonies. Yeah. Well, they did come over to take over. They invaded the Philippines. They won. They won against the Spanish. There's a Spanish-American War. I think it's in 1901 or something like that, and America won. And as part of that, the Spanish basically gave up the Philippines to America. And when America took over the Philippines, Filipinos also led a revolt against Americans, and Americans squashed the revolt and took over the Philippines, established a Commonwealth. It wasn't an American state yet. It was a Commonwealth colony basically, and and then eventually after World War II, Philippines was granted independence.
Oh, okay. So how did most Filipinos look or consider Americans in terms of, their presence in the Philippines? I mean, you're just talking about the time that in your lifetime,
In my
growing up
lifetime,
and things like that.
well, in my lifetime, Filipinos worshipped Americans. Everything American, in Hollywood is to blame for that, so everybody wants to be James Dean, everybody wants to be John Wayne, that kind of thing, right? So yeah, I mean, Philippines was very much into American culture, which was easier for me. It made it easy for me to adjust to living in America.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a lot of Filipinos were moving to America during that time. It was a thing,
Yeah. My first actually contact with a lot of Filipinos is when we moved to Hawaii, because I had a lot of Filipino friends and whatnot. But like in California, you were used to, or it was fairly easy to integrate. Did you ever feel that there was any type of a discrimination at all, or because you were Asian, that you
For
experienced
sure.
there?
Yeah, in the late 80s to 90s, I mean, there was a lot, California is not, it may be a melting pot, but it's probably one of the most racist states I've ever known of.
Really?
Yeah, because it's so blatant. It's so blatant. People will call me chink, people will call me gook. People will actually separate. There would be Filipino gangs, there'll be Mexican gangs, there'll be black gangs, white gangs, and it's very defined,
Wow.
Dating girls, for example, was like, you'd ask a girl out and be like, no, I don't date Asian guys. I mean, that kind of thing.
Right, right.
No, that's as racist as you can get, right?
Right.
When someone gives you an answer like, I don't want to date you because you're Asian. It'd be one thing if they said, I don't want to date you because you're ugly. but because you're Asian, that's a whole different ballgame, right? So things like that. I mean, that was very prevalent back then, but we didn't live in a woke society back then. So people are like, it's like matter of fact, people are like, okay, well, it is what it is, it is what it is. And if you don't like it, you don't like it,
Right.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, it never really bothered you if girls turned you down, or, I mean, in terms of your own identity, self-identity.
Well,
or
it did bother me, It did bother me, obviously. And it did bother me when some girls I really like didn't want to give me a chance because I'm Asian,
Right.
So flat out, tells me I don't date Asian guys. They have small peckers. So things like those,
Right, right.
Yeah.
Stereotype.
Stereotype, yeah, which is not true, right?
people,
So,
right.
but it's just that, it's just one of those things. And it bothered me quite a bit, and it got to a point where even I'm guilty of that too. I stopped like associating with Asians, probably to make myself feel better, that I'm not one of them,
Right.
So I started hanging out with mainly like white dudes, whatever. So all my friends were like white, and and then I was dating only white girls, you know. Not that I wasn't attracted to Asian girls, but it's just that I just put blinders on myself,
Right.
and I thought that if I can get in on the white crowd, that I'd be more accepted.
Right.
I wanted to break that mold kind of thing, which looking back now, I totally regret. But but it was very
It's a
ridiculous.
process.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Why would I think like that? But that's how. Yeah, that's how frustrating it was. That's how racism impacted me.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to think back about my time, and we also moved to the States around that period of time, 80 something. But in my school, there was only a couple of other Asians, and not Filipinos, but one. I think there was one was a Vietnamese and another. But anyway, so I wasn't ever around that many Asians, so my friends were naturally just more white. And I never thought about that in terms of, trying to be with white people as part of my identity, because I think I didn't have a choice. But in terms of dating wise too, I felt like I always dated white guys. I never dated an Asian guy until after I moved to Hawaii, which is quite multinational. And even then I dated a half white and Asian, person. So
Yeah, I mean, we were sort of socially conditioned to think that white is better.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if there's white blood in it, it's a good, it's a good way to build up your bloodline, is to introduce some Caucasian blood in it, that kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Boy, in San Diego is like that. Like a lot of girls, especially like some of the prettiest Asian girls that I remember in college, for example, they were only into white guys. You know, yeah, or that, or they'll go with they'll date like really really rich Asian guys.
right.
Yeah, but their eyes would still be on white guys. So
Yeah, because I think that makes a difference. It does make a difference because, the eyes are different, the hair is different, everything is different. And
but remember, it's conditioning.
Yes.
It's conditioning, right? So Hollywood has conditioned people to think that white is better.
better.
White is more attractive.
Yeah.
You're a white guy, you're a Hollywood star, that kind of thing. You're a movie star. It's like that movie star thing. Back in the 80s and 90s, there's no Asian big star in Hollywood.
Right.
And magazines, for example, you don't see Asians like grace the magazines, the front page of the magazines. Sexiest man alive, all white guys. So it's that kind of conditioning that, obviously, I don't blame people for wanting to date white guys, girls. Girls. I mean, I dated white girls too. I only preferred white girls because, I guess we were all conditioned that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, It wasn't until I moved to Asia that I like, you know what? I'm actually into Asian girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at least for Hollywood, the image, it's starting to have Asian as prominent, and they can be starring roles that are Asian men, leading roles now that are Asian men. But back then, yeah, it's
Sure, but that's
20
because
years,
of the
20,
market.
40 years it's been.
Asians
Yeah.
get to enter the race.
Yeah.
They get to enter the popularity race because of money. I'm telling you, nothing has changed
Yeah.
since the 80s. Nothing has changed. You know, all these Hollywood movies that, you know, they now appropriate Asians in it. They put Asians in their stars. Why? Because there's a market.
Yes.
Because people will pay tickets. Asians will pay tickets for it. Now because we're in an international market and Asia is a much bigger market than America, you know, you got to put Asians in there. Number two, more than half of these movies have Chinese investors. So the Chinese are like, put a Chinese girl in there, they'll put money in the movie.
Yeah.
Make the good guy Chinese guy, I'll put money in the movie. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, you know, thanks to Korea and China for promoting the Asian race.
Yeah.
You know, they sunk money into the Hollywood movies. They bought Hollywood studios so they can, you know, they can promote, you know, the Asian race, so to speak.
Yeah, you can't wait for somebody else to do it. You got to do it yourself, you know, in terms
At
of
the
a
end of
lot
the day,
things
it's all
in
about
life.
propaganda. You know, everything in life is all about propaganda, and Hollywood has taught us that. You know, it has nothing to do with who's better than who. It's what you know, what matters is who you think is better because of what the media portrays.
Yeah.
You know, so what is the popular consensus? You know, so yeah.
Yeah, the media is pretty strong out there in terms of shaping people's thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, lately it's just been crazy. But I remember that when I was in Hawaii and I was starting, I mean, I always liked acting when I was younger, but one of the casting directors in Hawaii had told me, she said, you know, if you're really interested in getting into the business, and this was before Asians started gaining popularity, before all the more recent Asian things. And she says, you know, you need to go now. Go to either LA or go to New York. And sometimes I wonder, you know, if I would have gone then to go to LA or get in the industry there, how different it would be. Because then it would have been on the front end of the wave of Asians.
Right,
You know, that,
right.
that came
You
up
definitely would have been working a lot.
Yeah.
That I know. I mean, it may not have been the role that you want. I know a lot of Asian guys back then. I was in it as well. I was in the whole Asian circle, and it was a very small circle back then. And the same guys get reused over and over and over again, you know. And but they're always bad guys, and they're always stunt actors, or they're always like, for women, they're always like the hooker or the mama-san or the, you know, or the other woman or that kind of thing.
Right.
The sex object for women, and for the guys, it'd be the bad guy. Yeah. But they were working like crazy. Who is the most legendary and the most sought after and the guy with the most number of roles in movies and TV? This guy named Al Leong. I think it's Leong or Jeong or something like that. You know. Anyway, he's this guy you've probably seen back in the 70s and 80s. Sort of almost balding, but long hair. And, you know, the
Fu Manchu mustache.
Yeah, mustache. Do you know? Yeah, stereotype.
Yeah,
But man, he is so rich. I remember seeing him in one set of a series that I was working in. And he did this thing. And I wanted to talk to him after the stuff, after we wrapped for the end of the day. But when he finished his scene, and we didn't need him anymore, he was out. He was gone right away. So I asked another of the guys. I said, "Where's Al?" He goes, "Oh, he's got like 2 other movies to go to right now." In one day, he was working in 2 movies. I mean, three projects.
Was he in?
He was jumping back and forth.
So was he background, or had speaking roles, or I mean?
He some of them he was never background. He was always the the henchman.
Right.
He's everyone's favorite henchman. So he wasn't just an extra. He was a stuntman. He was an actor. Sometimes he'd have speaking roles. Sometimes he won't. But he's a SAG actor because he's had speaking roles. He only started off as a grip for I forgot which studio it was. He was I think Warner. I think he was working for Warner, and he was a grip. He was just a crew member, and then that time, I think the director needed someone to teach the two female actors, some martial arts, and they had no one on the set. And so he said, "Hey, you look like you're Chinese. Do you know martial arts?" Another stereotype, of course. They see a Chinese guy, they're like, "Oh, he must know martial arts." Good thing this guy knew martial arts.
Yeah.
And he said, "Can you teach these two women some martial arts, some choreography?" So he choreographed the two actresses. He ended up getting a role for himself. And ever since, they started calling him in as an actor slash stuntman slash henchman kind of thing.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. He's one of the most successful. He's a legend.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's interesting you're talking about, the Asian image. I remember when my brother, when our family moved to Hawaii, and one of the first things people would say to him, "Hey, are you Bruce Lee?" Bruce Lee was the name that people saw in the movies at the time, and everybody kind of looks like him. Yeah.
One time I was doing a photo shoot at San Diego State University, where I was going to school. So I did this photo shoot, and I had to take my shirt off, and I had to do a martial arts pose. This is for a poster of a student film that we had done, where I played a martial arts bad guy, kind of thing. So I was doing a photo shoot, and then people passed by and were like, "Look, Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee." They see an Asian guy with a shirt off, posing like martial arts, and they're like, "Oh, Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee," Yeah, the stereotype was definitely there, Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah, I know, right? You either accept it or fight it, and it's really hard to. So for acting wise, then you were in California. You did a lot of acting early, and did you do that the whole time you were in the U.S.?
Well, when I was in the States, I wanted to. It's always been in the back of my mind, but I've always been embarrassed to tell people that I want to be an actor because that's so flaky. Like, you want to be an actor? I already have, kind of a complex about myself, and I didn't think I was. You always think that actors should be all good looking and all that stuff, and I'm like, I'd never thought of myself as good looking or anything like that. And to tell people I wanted to be an actor, it sounds so.
I know what you mean.
You know what I'm talking about. Right? So anyway, so I didn't want to tell my parents I want to be an actor. And also looking at the industry back then, Asian people just don't get a lot of roles. So I wanted to work in the film industry and maybe one day, hopefully, be discovered somehow, that kind of thing. So I think for me, the safest route was to become either a director, producer, or any like behind the scenes kind of guy. At least I would get my foot in the door. So instead of taking theater arts, which I originally considered, I took film. I went to film school.
Oh, nice.
So I went to film school because at the end of the day, whether I'm the main actor or not, whether I'm acting or not, I just wanted to work in films. I wanted to create. I wanted to write movies. I wanted to, and eventually one day produce them, and then eventually one day put myself in them. That kind of thing. It's always an ulterior motive. Of course, I never admitted that to anyone. So yeah. So I did. So I went to film school, and that was my first thing. I went to film school, and then when I was in film school, we started. Obviously, in film school, you got to do your student films, all that stuff, and I remember doing my first big student film. It was actually won a lot of awards. He won like best action film for the Kensington Awards kind of thing, and we needed a bad guy who's totally badass and can do martial arts. Obviously, all my classmates are like, "That would be you, Vince." So I kind of acted and directed, you know.
Oh.
So I directed the action, I did the choreography, all that stuff, and then I acted in it as the main bad guy. And because of that, because of my role, it was the most unforgettable role, basically, for that movie. And the other actors were great, but they weren't doing anything that's out of the blues that's totally outstanding because they're doing, they're acting just like everyone else. But when I came out of the blues, I had this face, I had this look, my two guns, my martial arts. It set me above the rest. And the film won best. It was supposed to be a comedy, but we won best action film.
Oh wow, that was one of your very first awards.
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
My first film was an award-winning film. That was so cool.
So was it hard being a director and acting in the film? Because you do
very
that
hard.
nowadays too.
I used to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, not anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. After after the last movie that I directed and acted in, as the main director, I told myself never again. I don't mind doing like what we call action directing. So that's actually not directing in the director's,
The whole, yeah.
sense. It's really more like fight choreography.
Right, right.
Yeah, you're just directing the fight scenes and all that. So I don't mind doing that, and also being the actor. That's not too hard. I kind of like doing that because I want to be able to dictate my own movements. So because I know what looks good and what doesn't. But I'll never direct a movie that I'm also, acting in as a main actor.
Yeah.
Again, ever again.
Well, so after your award-winning film like that, did you go on to bigger and better things in film and acting?
Yeah, after finishing, after I got out of film school, I went to work for Stu Segall Productions in a TV series called Renegade with Lorenzo Lamas.
Oh,
Yeah, briefly. It was, and there's a lot of martial arts in it too, because Lorenzo Lamas was a martial artist. There's a lot of fight scenes, so that was good. I think I worked like about half a season, and then I got pulled into another Stu Segall production project, just because they needed someone behind the camera. I was a second AC for Silk Stockings. I worked there for another maybe half a season. And then there was another season that was in development, Vanishing Sun. It was at that time like the first Asian-led TV series. With Russel Wong was the lead, right? So it was the first it really was the first, I think. I don't remember of any other TV series where the lead guy was Asian.
Asian, yeah.
That was it. And obviously it's martial arts driven. So and anyway, it was really good for me because it was all martial arts driven. It's a martial arts backstory and everything. A lot of martial arts and a lot of Asian guys. That's how I met a lot of my circle of friends. In the Hollywood, Asian circle, is through that series. I worked in it originally as a second AC. And while I was on the set, kind of like Ali Young, the stunt coordinator, action director, was like he just needed more Asian gangsters in there. And then a lot of my friends know I do martial arts, so he heard about it. He goes, "Hey, Vince, I heard you do martial arts," and so he interviewed me briefly. He goes, can you do some?" Can you be one of the bad guys for this episode? And so I'm like, sure. I thought it was just one episode, just as an extra. So there was a big fight scene in a restaurant, and we rushed in and we were fighting, blah blah blah. And then and I was throwing kicks and all stuff, and I guess I did really well. And the stunt coordinator said, "We're not gonna kill you off." So he kind of changed the choreography a little bit where I didn't get killed.
Right.
And then he retained me for the next several episodes. So I ended up like switching. I ended up like, well, they had to like ask my boss at that time, the director of photography, if they can pull me out of the camera team. because now I get to work full time with the stunt team.
Right.
So I ended up being an actor for the rest of the season. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it, and after that, obviously the series never made it because it was too early for an Asian-led series, for an Asian-led mainstream series in the U.S. at the
Yeah.
time.
I mean, saying that, I just wanted to ask you because remember when that David Carradine,
Yeah, Kung Fu.
did that as a white person.
Yeah, that did really well.
Yeah,
that was
it
like
did.
many seasons.
So I mean, why did you think that did well? Was it the story?
Because he's white.
Because he's white, right? And to do that, yeah.
It didn't
take
matter.
over the
It didn't
Asian
matter whether it's an Asian
Yeah.
theme. It doesn't matter at all whether if it's an Asian theme, an Asian story, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could have played like the one-eyed swordsman if he wanted to, but it's David Carradine. He's a white dude.
Yeah.
You know, so so it took off. So then when they created Vanishing Sun, it has the same sort of concept. This wandering guy, this wandering Asian guy that goes to different places, saves the day, does good deeds, but he's a peaceful man. You know, that kind of thing. Just kind of like David Carradine's character. But this time it was Russel Wong,
Yeah.
who's Asian. Not even full Asian, half Asian.
Yeah.
But he looked more Asian.
Yeah.
And he had the Asian last name. You know, so yeah, it didn't take off. It just didn't take off. He just didn't have the fan base that David Carradine has. You know, so putting David Carradine in a Chinese character would be like putting someone like Brad Pitt at that time in a Chinese character type of role. It didn't matter. He was David Carradine.
I mean, that's the way it is. What it is, right?
This industry is reliant on fan base.
Yeah.
When you got fans, you got people who's going to buy tickets or watch your series, which means advertisers are going to dump money in it because they're going to know that it has a lot of coverage in terms of viewers. That's all there is. It's all money, you know. So now, in this time and age, because there's a lot of Asians in the U.S. and they're powerful and they have a lot of freaking money and they're very strong on the Asian thing, the Asian theme. They're like, Asians unite kind of thing, very strong about that. Obviously, Hollywood is like, you know what? That's a big market.
Yeah.
Let's make some Asian movies. Let's make Shang-Chi. Let's make all this let's put an Asian in every single movie that we have.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of like that. The Black African Americans were going through a phase
same
before
thing.
the Asians.
That was the same thing that happened to Black Americans, right? They got to, at that time, blacks were not really considered for movies. This is in the 70s, right? 60s and 70s. You don't see a lot of blacks and stuff. Then came the blackploitation kind of thing, and then black producers because they have so much money. Sports celebrities because they have so much money, and also like singers and performers.
Yeah.
They invested in building up the black image in Hollywood. Then you had guys like Jim Brown, Jim Richardson, Jim Kelly, or something like a bunch of black stars.
Yeah.
Back, this is back in the 70s and 80s. A bunch of black stars leading their own movies, eventually TV series, and it clicked. It clicked, and then suddenly it was cool to date the black guy, that kind of thing. Yeah.
How fickle we are.
It's all based on money. It's all economics.
Yeah.
It's all economics.
Okay, so then Hollywood was your thing for how many years? I mean,
well, it wasn't that long. I was working in Hollywood when it was still tough for an Asian guy to make it.
Yeah.
And after a few hiccups, I jumped ship because I had an opportunity to do something that promised more money. Mm-hmm. I was in my late 20s and starving. Made some money here, lost money here, that kind of thing, back and forth. I wanted to make some money. I needed some stability. So I jumped ship. It was also during the dotcom era. I saw that people were becoming millionaires just working in dotcom companies and high-tech companies. And I realized that, in order to get in there, I have to learn how to be a programmer, all that stuff, so I did. So I studied programming, and when the opportunity, gave itself, I jumped ship and became, a programmer, software engineer.
Well,
Yeah.
it's always, my brain doesn't handle engineering or programming very well, although my dad was, he was doing programming, and my brother ended up learning all about computer and technology, computer IT or stuff like that. But was it it was an easy thing for you to just go from there to there? I mean, it's complicated. It's not that easy for a regular person.
I don't know. For me, it was easy because of the way my brain works. I didn't. Okay, a lot of people become like software engineers or programmers, because they have a mathematical brain, right? So it's math for them basically. I had an artist's brain.
Yeah.
So to me, it wasn't an equation; it was a scene, right? So if you look at programming, what is when you write a program, the basic of programming is if, then, else, right?
Right.
If 1 + 1 is equals to 2, then 2 is your main, variable, something like that, or else this, and this. It's all about scenario, right?
Yeah.
If you do this, then this happens. If this doesn't happen, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens, and then this, and then this. Or you can have these options, kind of thing. So programming is all about that. It's logic. It's a logic flow, right? So if, then, else. But that's life, and that's scenes. If you write a script, if that guy, punched this other guy, and the other guy didn't fall down, he would fight back. Or if he fell down, he'd be knocked out. And then this guy would walk over there. So it's creating scenes, basically. So I looked at programming in terms of writing a script. So a program for me is just a script.
Yeah, that's just like such a totally different way of thinking
It's scripting,
to make
because
it work for you. Yeah.
the reason why I started thinking like that is my first foray into programming was what we call scripting, automation. So I was working for a game company, Cyber Dreams, that made movies into computer games. So I was working in the film department. So we would shoot the movie, and we would shoot multiple like paths to a certain action. Like, for example, the main character would go to a door, and right as he opens, or he'd go into a wall, and there'd be 2 doors, and then right as he about to choose which door, the game would pause, and then there would be something like, go to the left, go to the right, and the users would make their decision. Okay, I want my character to go to the right. And when he opens the door, all this stuff happens. Okay, so or if he opens the other door, different types of stuff happens. So that's basically how they did that, right? So the game worked that way. So we shot all the different scenarios, different possible scenarios. So then after the shooting of the movie, they edit the movie, and they turn it into a game. So turn into a game, you have all these different options. So at that time, because I wasn't working on the filming side, the engineering manager asked me if I wanted to help out test the game. So we were testing the game manually. Like, I would literally play the game, right? So then I looked over. I remember I looked over in the room. I saw some guys like just punch a button, and walk over and have some coffee, and then go back and check the results. And I told John, my boss, is like, what are they doing? And he goes, oh, they're doing the same thing you're doing, but they automated the test. They're doing test automation. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, well, they programmed the the interface to where the computer does all the testing, logs all the results, whether it's pass, fail, or whatever, or the system crashes, the game crashes, and it's basically just like a person clicking on the buttons and playing the game, except it's way faster because the amount of time it would finish for you to finish the game, which would be about 3 days, they can finish the game in about 10 minutes because it's automated, you know. And I'm like, dude, I want to learn that. He goes, you should learn that. You should, if you want to go into software, he said, you should learn it. And so I started learning what we call scripting.
Yeah.
Scripting is not quite programming. You know, it's just scripting. It's just creating a bunch of commands for the computer. You know, you're basically commanding the keyboard and the mouse to click this, move there, enter this, you know, whatever, and then log the results. So you're just scripting, you're just automating the whole function, the whole usage. And I learned a language called Visual Basic, which is a part of the Microsoft language, scripting languages before. And then also eventually I learned JavaScript. You know, so I learned the scripting languages, and I really enjoyed like scripting because it was similar to programming. Although programming is a lot deeper than that, you know. And then so I started doing the test automation. I was pretty good at it. And then I really got into the programming thing. I started taking night classes at UCSD for real programming. So I studied C, C++, Java, the whole shebang, right? And even database programming for Oracle and all that. SQL, you know, SQL programming. So I did all that. I started studying. I was just crazy, just obsessed with, you know, with studying this stuff. And in like about a year, I became proficient, and I was a certified, you know, like C, C++ developer. And
A year?
after a year, yeah, I got really good at it. And this is all just using my imagination, and when I do programming, thinking of it in terms of scenarios, like a script. So anyway, yeah, I mean, after a year, a little bit over a year, the company I was working for basically folded. They ran out of investor money, and when they folded, literally, I packed my stuff, walked across the street. We were working in Calabasas, California at that time, in like a technology park. I walked across the street to another company, and applied and got the job, like right there and then, as a database programmer. You know, so.
Whoa.
And then the rest was history. I just started I worked in the software industry for about 10 years.
Oh, okay. So you said you weren't the poor guy anymore. You said you did it from money. You needed.
I did
to
it
make
for money.
and
Yeah,
you were
I
able
did
to-
yeah, absolutely. And then after that, you know, I was making good money there. I got a job after that company. I got a job in San Diego working for a big, you know, automation company, also as a programmer. From San Diego, I got really proficient programming. I got promoted a couple of times, and then I had the confidence to go to Silicon Valley. So then I moved to Silicon Valley and worked with the really big companies, and yeah, and you know, I ended up really succeeding. Like my last, you know, I was a vice president of engineering. I have 2 software patents, U.S. patents.
Are they still in effect, these patents?
Yeah, yeah. So you can still search them on Google. Yeah, the software patents, they're forever. That's your patent.
So if you have a patent, do people you get a notice that if somebody wants to use that patent or something like
Yeah,
that?
whoever owns the patent, you know,
Okay.
basically. Yeah, normally other companies or agencies will own a patent. And then you as the, you know, the inventor depends on your agreement, may or may not get royalties. You know, so yeah. So yeah, once in a while you get royalties here and there if my patent is being used. Yeah, and yeah, it basically did really, really well in software. I made a lot of money. I have to say, yeah.
So you went from, because you ended up in Beijing, so you went from Silicon Valley where you stayed there, made a lot of money, and then how'd you end up in Beijing?
At that time, I had invented a couple of algorithms, and that was really, really at the time crucial for the 3G infrastructure. So for phones, I was already working in mobile technology at that time, And I have, I'm part of this team that created this crazy, groundbreaking technology that allows phones to get updated over the air, like the firmware to get the phone's firmware to get updated over the air. And that was important, especially in 3G networks and stuff. So our company we had a deal with HP that we have to integrate our company with China Telecom, because China was building their own 3G platform.
3G. That's so old.
So
now we're in 5G.
5G now.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you're one of the innovators.
Yeah,
when
this was
3G
this was
there.
early 2000s, right? So that's
Okay.
2004. So we my company opened an office in Beijing to manage this integration process. If we're able to, if we're basically, we have to integrate our technology into the Chinese platforms. If that was successful, then HP would acquire our company. It's for millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? So my job was crucial, was to go in there and basically manage a team that would integrate the technology in, which we did successfully. And then my company got bought by HP. But that's not where the story ends. That's actually just where the story begins.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Where did it go from there then?
Because when I was in Beijing, life was completely different.
Yeah.
I was in Asia. For some reason, the pressures of the U.S. weren't there anymore. The quality of life, believe it or not, was way, way better. Me as an American living in Beijing, and as an Asian, Asian American living in Beijing, none of the fears that everyone told me, even my mom told me about coming to China, none of it was true.
Yeah, like about
Oh, you're
what?
living in a communist country now. They're going to follow you around. If you do something wrong, they're going to throw you in Siberia, in the prison in Siberia, and we'll never see you again. Oh, there's human rights, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be mistreated, blah, blah, blah. The police don't care about you, and all that stuff.
Media again, right?
The media
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like, dude, I came to Beijing. I look over and you see the cops don't have guns. I see like regular citizens yelling at policemen. Like, get out of my face. What are you doing here? Move.
Well,
Like,
in the 2020 or 19...
this is 2004.
2004.
2005. Actually, yeah, 2005.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. This is 2005 and I moved to Beijing. And it was nothing what all the people in the U.S. told me. And of course, everything has its downsides, right? There are some downsides in living in China. I don't like attitudes, for example. So
What kind of attitudes are you
just
talking about? Towards you or
no, not
just
towards me.
in
Just
general?
in general, like sanitation, things like
yeah.
that. People
Right.
just spitting in the streets,
Yeah.
or spitting in front of you, or that kind of thing, or lack of hygiene. But that's neither here nor there. And also the government basically changes the rules from time to time, so you never know when the law will change. But that it doesn't hamper your lifestyle. If you pay attention to all those things, doesn't matter, right? So it really doesn't matter. The way things there, people take an active role in knowing what's going on. Like for example, traffic tickets. So in the U.S., if you have a traffic violation, if you did something wrong, you just wait to see if you get a ticket or not. So if you get a ticket, then you go ahead and pay it or whatever. In China, let's say if at the end of the month, if you're driving, you have to check on the internet to see if you have any tickets or not.
Oh.
Yeah, no one's going to send you a ticket.
In 2004, it was that modern already? Because I'm thinking, 2023 now, but
Yeah, they do
really?
that. They already
had
did that in
then?
2004. They have cameras everywhere.
I never thought about it because I moved to Shanghai in 2001 and I didn't really drive, so I never
Yeah, right.
was
Had that.
aware of that kind of thing. Okay, so
They don't have cops chasing you, and pulling you over because you ran a light.
well, that's the problem too. Is that the traffic? A lot of road rules that we adhere to in the States or in Europe or whatever like that. People don't pay attention to it so much in China.
Yes and no.
That was my case in Shanghai when I was
yes and
living
no.
there.
If you ever own a car in China, you would know that you better pay attention because it will hurt your pocket very, very deeply. And you have, have you ever had a Chinese driver's license?
No, not when I
Okay.
was in Shanghai.
When you get Chinese driver's license, you get 10 points, right? You get 10 points that you go through for the whole year.
Oh.
If you run out of points, you lose your license.
Oh, so you get a
Just like
point
that.
is if you do something bad or you do a
get
traffic violation
Yeah,
or
that's a
something.
point. Yeah.
Oh,
You
that's interesting because it goes from there and it just
But here's even
deducts.
worse.
What?
Here's even worse. You don't get ticketed. Like the US, you get ticketed. They pull you over, says, let me see your driver's license. They get ticketed by your driver's license. In China, you get ticketed by the license plate of the car. So let's say you're driving a friend's car. They pulled you over, right? They pulled you over and they get, oh, no one pulls you over, sorry. If you're driving a friend's car and you get caught running a light, your friend's gonna get a ticket
Right.
because it's his car.
Right, right.
Yeah. So now your friend has 10 points. So he's gonna go through his points pretty fast if he keeps lending his car to people. So people become more responsible because they know that if they lend their car to other people, there's a good chance they're going to get a ticket. So you're responsible. You don't just lend your car to anyone. And if you do, you lend it to like a family member that you know you can manage. So if I do get a ticket, I can turn to my sister, brother, or whatever, and say, "Hey, look, the car just got a ticket. Go pay for it." So it works. For me, I see how it actually works. Because when I owned a car in China, I'm like, hell no, you're not driving my car, because if you get a ticket, any sort of stuff, and you walk away from me, I'm screwed. It's going to go against my points. I only have 10 points, So, and when you're driving, you're paying attention to the lights. You're paying attention to whether there's camera or not. If you want to, obviously everyone speeds every now and then. If you want to speed, you want to speed where there's no cameras. So you have to figure out that kind of thing.
I feel like you're coming from a position of a foreigner living in China where you're more likely to observe the rules and pay attention compared to a local Beijing person or a local driver in Shanghai, because I swear, I don't know, maybe Beijing was more closer to the capital, so it's more regulated or something.
Beijing definitely is more regulated because it's closer to the capital. It's the culture too. Beijingers are very proud that they're from the capital, so they actually take extra responsibility to make sure that Beijing stays regulated, stays disciplined. So I feel that, because I've also been in Shanghai, I own a gym in Shanghai too. I feel like in Shanghai, people are much looser, much wilder in some ways, less disciplined than people are in Beijing.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really just a perspective.
So you just mentioned you had a gym in Shanghai. So you were in high tech. And then you started owning a gym?
Yeah. So I originally moved to Beijing in 2005, worked in the high-tech industry. And while I was there, I saw the lifestyle and I saw the quality of life. And I realized, I realized that, man, I'm pissing away my life. I'm just wasting my time as a software engineer. Why? Because I wanted to make money. Why? Because it's hard to survive in America without money. But now in China, you don't need that much money to survive, but still be able to do the things you do. I was single at that time. I didn't need much to live. The food was really yummy and cheap and everything. The public transportation was so easy and cheap as well. And so I'm like, I can live in a one-bedroom apartment in a fairly nice area and pay like less than a third of the price I would pay in America. And so at that time I had started doing martial arts again, and then I had a friend from work that was kind of like a wannabe filmmaker. So we ended up like going, me too, and then we started like, then it kind of drove my my passion, brought up my passion for film again, and I realized to myself, this is what I want to be all along, and I just let it go because of economics, because of money, because of finances, and now I'm in a position to pursue I was ready, I was 40, and I'm like, wow, I'm not getting any younger, and I was in a position to pursue my passion, something that I may never be able to do again. This the one chance I have. I didn't know whether I was going back to the States or not, but I knew I was in China, and I have this chance, and I said to myself, I'm going to do it. So martial arts and film. So then I quit my job. After I finished integration, I didn't even wait for HP to buy my company. After I finished integration, I was successful. I was like, job well done. Okay, I'm good. I'm done. I retire. So I retired from software in 2006.